Charlie, ready? Charlie, are you ready?
There you go. Here. Do you want
Oh, do we
to
need
pass
no
that
one
to
to?
maybe Dan?
Okay.
There's a microphone for Dan. All set. All right. I'm calling the May 30th, 2018 Zoning Board of Appeals hearing to order at 7:36 p.m. I'm Casey Bailey. I'm the chair of the board. The members are Kathy Franson to my left, and to my right, Jason Normand and Dan McDonald. We're joined by Alana Quirk, counsel from KP Law tonight. So we have one public hearing on the agenda and then a few business items afterwards. So with that, I'll call the public hearing to order and open it. I'll read the legal notice into the record. Please bear with me, I have a cold, so if you can't hear me, let me know. I can't hear myself, so just raise your hand if you can't hear me. So in accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 40B and Chapter 40A, Section 11, the Groveland Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on May 30th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. in the Groveland Town Hall Meeting Room, 183 Main Street, Groveland, Mass., to consider the application by Steve and Jennifer Cadigan to modify the November 10th, 2009 comprehensive permit for 15 Philbrook Street in order to allow an expansion of the single-family home at 15 Philbrook Street, Assessor's Map 16, Parcel 92, that is owned by the Cadigans. The proposed modifications are shown on plan sheets that indicate a 46.5-foot long and 12-foot wide addition that would increase the footprint of the structure and the density of the use of the lot, and would decrease the southeasterly side setback from 16 feet to 4 feet and 11 inches for the structure and 3 feet 11 inches for the proposed chimney. If we could hear from the applicant. Great.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lisa Mead, Tellerman Costa, on behalf of the applicants, Jennifer, Stephen Cadigan. And-
Attorney Mead, if it could move the microphone over just so it picks up for the recording, just to try to make sure people can hear us, and we can do minutes later.
Try to speak up as well.
Thank you. Yes,
gonna
as I
use
can't
your-
hear.
Table. Before I forget, I would like to hand out a letter from Ann and Harry Perkins of 2 Sylvan Street as not being opposed to the proposed addition on the structure. And as the chair indicated, the Cadigans are here because they wish to put an addition, a small addition, on the southerly side of their home. As by way of background, this is subject to a comprehensive permit, and we came in a few weeks ago for an insubstantial change. The board determined that this was a substantial change. We got some information from the board, some questions they wanted to have addressed, and then we refiled the public hearing as a substantial change. Whether or not that continues, we'll have that discussion with the board. So the Cadigans at 15 Philbrook Street would like to add a very modest addition to the southerly side of their home by adding a second 2-story addition at the front, which adds an office on the first floor and a bedroom on the second floor. And the 2-story addition is about 14 feet deep, and then it drops to a 1-story addition in the rear. So this portion of it is a 2-story addition, and then it drops down to a single-story addition in the rear. And I'll show you. You can see it in the plan elevation, and this is the best way to see it. So here's the side view, and here's the 2-story addition in the front. Here's the front of the house. Here's the 2-story addition. It drops off as a single-story addition in the back, and I'm not sure if that was clear enough when we were here last time with the board. The addition would be 12 feet wide for just over about half the length, and then given the change in the shape of the lot and the position of the house on the lot, it gets more narrow at the front of the lot, and the setback goes from the current setback at the narrowest point at 16 feet to a new setback at 5 feet. The small addition would have no impact on the lot area, coverage, lot area coverage, frontage, front setback, left side setback, rear setback, height, or required contiguous open space on the property. There would be a slight increase in the impervious surface area from 26% to 32%, but still well below the 50% maximum. And the only impact would therefore be on the right side setback, which is reduced to 5 or 15 feet are required. In short, aside from the side yard setback, it actually complies with all of the Groveland zoning bylaw requirements. As you're aware, the original developer permitted this 3-lot subdivision as part of a comprehensive permit, and one of those 3 lots is an affordable unit. The Cadigans are the owners of this lot here at number 15, but we're not the applicant at the time. The comprehensive permit involved no change to the original single-family dwelling on the property in which the Cadigans reside, in which they continue to wish to reside with their children. I will say that the comprehensive permit does have the language in it that applies to the applicant. In the comprehensive permit, the term applicant shall include the applicant's successors and assigns where applicable. And if you go to the last page of the comprehensive permit, where it discusses successors and assigns, on page 16, it provides that the comprehensive permit shall be binding upon the successors and assigns the applicant, and all of the obligations shall run with the land. And in the event the applicant sells, transfers, or assigns any of its interests in the project, the comprehensive permit shall be binding on the purchaser, transferee, or assignee, and any such sale, transfer, assignment other than conveyance through the sale of the proposed units shall be subject to the prior approval of the zoning board of appeals, which approval shall not be unreasonably withheld. So we believe that the comprehensive permit obviously is still applicable to this property, and the Cadigans are permitted to be before the board to seek a modification as it applies to their house, and we can talk about that more in a little bit. So when we were here last time, specifically the board had 3 areas I think that they raised questions on that I don't know that we fully addressed, and that I believe we have addressed now in our filings. One was, and importantly, was regard to the impervious surface over the entire area. So the comprehensive permit at section 5A indicates where there is a proposed increase in impervious surface over what was permitted, the change would be considered substantial. So the applicants hired Christensen and Sergi, who were the original engineers on the project, and Phil provided a review and the as-built plan and compared it to what's being proposed. And we provided a letter, and I actually have signed copies of that letter. I think you have a copy in your package that wasn't quite signed. He was just getting back from vacation, but it's the same letter, just with his signature and stamp, which shows that the approved plans allow for the 3,789 square feet of impervious area, and those were included in our application package to you. However, only 2,936 was constructed, and that also was provided to you. That was the as-built plans that was also provided to the town. Therefore, there's an additional 853 square feet available to meet the permit maximum. The proposed addition creates 542 square feet of impervious surface, and therefore it's less than that which was permitted under the original drainage calculations of the development project. And therefore, the proposed change is actually in compliance with the original comprehensive permit. And Phil makes note of that in his letter to the board. Next was the number of bedrooms. And while I wasn't here, my colleague said this generated interesting discussion. So the comprehensive permit is clear that there are 9 bedrooms over the entire project, essentially 3 in each home. And here's the existing structure and the existing floor plans. So let's just concentrate on the second floor where the bedrooms are. The master bedroom is here, which on the second floor is only accessible through this room right here, and then a stairway in the back. So this is the master bedroom. This is currently without the privacy, being used as a bedroom, and this is a bedroom in the front. The proposal is to reconfigure the bedroom situation. And here's the master bedroom. Turn this actually into a sitting room. I actually was in the house. This is a very modest sized house. These rooms aren't like giant and overflowing. Turn this into a sitting room and extra closet space for the master bedroom. Then have this bedroom, which currently is his bedroom, and then build this bedroom here, which is the second floor of that front addition. So there would be 3 bedrooms, 1, 2, 3. And the question is, I believe there was some discussion of the board, well, what if somebody uses a bedroom that's not really a bedroom, a room that's not really a room? So we looked for a number of ways to define bedroom. And under Title V, Title V says single-family dwellings are presumed to have at least 3 bedrooms. The same regulation defines bedrooms as a room providing privacy intended primarily for sleeping. If you were in this room, you would know that that's not the case. Also, the addition doesn't create a 3rd bedroom, it just reorganizes, it adds a bedroom, creates a 3rd bedroom here, but uses this as a sitting room and closet area for the master bedroom. Then we looked to Groveland's own Board of Health regulations. So we looked everywhere in Groveland, how do you count bedrooms, how do you count bedrooms? The Board of Health regulations actually has a methodology to count bedrooms. It says you count the number of rooms, you divide by 2, if it's an odd number, you round down. That's what the Board of Health regulations say. Of course, this is on town sewer, it's not a Title V system. So we applied the Board of Health regulations to this project. So this becomes a great room. You can see this is a half wall here, and this is a half wall here. These are all open. These walls are all being removed. This whole area is all open. So one room, this is all done by the architect. I did the coloring, I wouldn't blame the architect for that. So this is one room, 2 rooms, this is the new office. And by the way, currently, the Cadigans have a kitchen here and a dining table here. And so this is basically giving them a little more space. We're looking at, this is 9 feet wide, so we're basically giving them a little more elbow space here with a living room area and a sitting room and media area here. Then there's a playroom that's on the 1st floor that exists now. And then the new office would be on the 1st floor. And on the 2nd floor, as we discussed, we have the master bedroom. This is the sitting room. It's the sitting room. Number 2 bedroom, which is 3, and another bedroom, which is 4. So there are 7 rooms in this house. Divide by 2, round down, that's 3 bedrooms, according to your very own Board of Health regulations. So we comply with the comprehensive permit in regards to the Board of Health regulations if you count bedrooms in that way. Title V would say there are 3 presumed, and you have to count privacy. There's no privacy in this room, given the 2 means of egress in and out of it. And if you were actually in this room, you would see that. We misstated in our filing that the washer and dryer are in here, but it's not. The washer and dryer are in this this bathroom in here. The last issue that the board raised, I believe it was the last issue, regarded the adequacy of access on the side of the house. So currently there's 16 feet on this side of the house, and our proposal is to have it go to 5 feet. The lot beside the house, the Cadigans lot, I think the neighbors are here. This is a wooded area right here, and then the neighbor's house sits over here, but this is a wooded area back in here. There are no structures over here. So there's a few things we would like to point out regarding the adequacy of access, and I think it was mostly discussed regarding fire access and fire prevention. First is that the new addition is only 2 stories in the front. Right here, this 2-story addition, the rest is a flat roof. So they're not adding 3rd story, It's 2 stories for the front. It can be reached all around by a ladder and/or a fire hose, certainly. I was actually out there, I don't know if Mr. Jocelyn has been out there, or any of you have been out there. I think if a fire truck pulled in here, you could actually take a fire hose all the way around the house. But that, you can certainly reach the 2nd story from here and from here with no problem whatsoever. Second, there are no buildings immediately adjacent to the house on the next door lot. Third, the fire department has ample access around the structure and over the structure, given the rear addition is only 1 story. Emergency vehicles have ability to access the side and back of the house, of the property using the existing driveway. Additionally, the comprehensive permit and the easement regarding the turnaround still exists in this area to allow trucks to come down and back out and go away. That still exists, obviously. Fourth, there's no prohibition in the Groveland zoning bylaw for putting a porch in the side yard, or having fences in the side yard, or having any other kind of outdoor structure in the side yard. So even if the Cadigans weren't gonna put a addition here, they could put a porch, they could put decks, they could have fences along here. In fact, there's actually a fence along the front of the property here. I suspect that the fire department is gonna get in there, no matter what they need to do. That's typically what fire departments do in order to access the house. And then finally, there's case law which provides, the Ginsburg case, which provides that side yard setbacks should not be considered, or encroachments in side yard setbacks should not be considered substantial changes, rather insubstantial changes. So those are the proposed changes that we have. We hope that we've addressed the concerns that the board raised at the last meeting, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do. On the plans we were provided, there is actually more rooms on that first floor defined.
On the,
That whole,
right, so when we,
yeah, that whole space is not that open.
so when you, the revised plans that you were provided,
I
In
don't
your
know. I have
most
so
recent
many
package?
copies of stuff. I don't know which.
It's the big ones. that
they
you
have
just-
the
yeah.
dot, so
Is
I
that a-
highlighted this to make them really defined, but he, the revised plans clearly have opened up, and we note this in our filing, that he has opened up this whole first floor. They would be dated, he doesn't have the revised date on here. It says 2/12, but that's not the revised date.
Well, these ones are from 4/4.
5:15.
Yeah, what we have is dated 5/15, but
5/15.
sounds
Yeah, but they
revised.
should be all, yeah, it's the same thing.
So are the dotted lines beams, is that?
No, that's their existing walls, they're
Those are
gone.
existing walls, okay.
Right. So you see the half wall, thank you, Sam. So there's a half wall here, right here, and those are poles, right, and half, excuse me, the arrow says this is the half wall right here. See the little arrow? And then the arrow says this is a half wall right here.
Madam Chair, just a point. Could council just, for the record, make it clear what the date of the plan is that's before the board? So just so
Sure.
that it's really clear what the date of it is?
5/15/2018,
And that supersedes any prior plan?
yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, on these ones, it looks like it was made into a half wall here, rather than a full wall.
Okay, so he's got the little arrow there,
So the dotted line is where they're taking down walls to make.
correct.
Yeah.
And there may be beams in there, I mean, I don't have the construction drawings, but,
No, the question was, what is the dotted, so that,
well, they would be
Taking-
existing walls, so
Yeah.
certainly this is the exterior, the existing wall, so,
Got it. okay.
yeah.
Did you have follow-ups or?
No.
Okay. I have a few questions, if I may go.
Mhm.
So the impervious surface difference between what was approved in the plan and what was actually constructed, where does that how is that difference made up? Like, what wasn't built?
So on the as-built plans versus what was approved,
So our copy of the approved plan is pretty
Yeah, it's-
difficult to read.
It's
so-
very difficult to read.
Yeah.
That's why I couldn't
the
find
best
it
one
either.
I had, too.
And I couldn't read.
My best guess is it's a garage for the lot number 1, but I just wanted it clarified.
Yeah, that was because I can't read any of the measurements.
You know, I'd have to ask Phil exactly what the difference was. It looks like this garage may be a little smaller,
Okay.
if you look at the approved plans. And there is no garage here on this lot.
Okay. So,
And that, on the approved plans, it has a garage.
yeah.
Right.
So my real question is, if the garage for lot 1 was approved in the comprehensive plan and is shown on the approved plans, do those owners have the right to build that as of right if it conforms to?
So it would be lot 3,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
I mean, I think the answer would be yes. I can't see what size the garage is, because there's still significant area left.
I get, so my point is, if they're entitled to build that as of, based on this approved plan, and the Cadigans also build their addition, if there's the potential to exceed the impervious surface area, my question is this not actually a change and an increase if the other people have the right to go ahead without having to come before us?
Well,
Because, I mean, if we shift that impervious surface area to a different lot, then you're kind of changing what was approved for lot 3, and then they would be in the position of having to come for a modification of the comprehensive permit.
so I'm gonna answer that in 2 ways. So the first way is, if you look at the approved plans, the answer is yes, they would have a right to build the lot. The question is, what, in my mind, and council could address this maybe also, what did the town do with the actually as-built plans? Because that's what was actually as-built. And the question is, would that?
Does that trump the
Right.
approved
And
plan?
I don't know, Phil did the as-built plan, so he had it, so I'm not sure whether or not the as-built plan was recorded, but he's got all kinds of certifications on it as the project being complete.
Mhm.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just to respond to that.
Please.
What the board might want to do is to have some kind of peer review, if there's a town engineer, someone who's available in-house to look at this issue, to compare the plans, because certainly your question, I think, is an important one, and have someone look at it and advise the board. If there isn't someone internally, you could go outside. Obviously, this is a small project, but, if it's of concern, then certainly you could do that. I can tell you, having been counsel when the permit was issued years ago, drainage was the big concern. And the issue that you're raising was one of the concerns as well. Obviously, there are drainage divides. I'm not an engineer, but certainly we all know that there are drainage divides on property. And so there is the potential that the drainage is going in one direction versus another direction, depending upon where the impervious surface is. So that's an issue. obviously, what was allowed before, will continue to be allowed, but there may be an issue with respect to what's new that's proposed. So I don't know if you have someone in-house who could look at that, or whether you have a consultant who could advise on that.
So Phil Christensen was the original engineer on the project. I think the board's pretty familiar with Christensen and Sergi. So before they asked for a peer review, given the modest addition that we're doing, I would like to be able to answer the board's questions by having at least Phil reply, and then you can decide whether or not you want to have a peer review of that. It's a pretty significant expense to have somebody peer review it, depending on what the board feels about Phil's reply. So, if I could, A, we'll find out what happened to the as-built plan. B, assuming the worst-case scenario, add the footprint of the garage back onto the as-built plan. And C, tell you what happens to the drainage by adding the addition back here where that water flows. I think you're gonna find, and again, I don't know if anybody's been up here or not, but I think you're gonna find this water goes like right here and right here. It's not, the way the property is, I don't, and the fact that there's the house and the patio, I don't think the water goes all the way down to the low point in the area. When you come up Philbrook, it's uphill. So the highest point of Philbrook is back here.
If I could ask one follow-up question to council. So, am I understanding it right that if the as-built was recorded, that becomes the approved plan versus what was approved by the board? Is that
Well,
correct?
what was approved by the board is what was approved by the board.
Yeah.
And the as-built should reflect what was approved by the board.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened during the as-built process.
I mean, I'm not gonna
what-
make somebody build a garage if they don't want it, but,
Well,
you know.
well, exactly. I mean, the other thing that could be done in the event that someone wants to surrender their rights, then obviously that could happen.
Okay.
There is always that potential. And I did have one procedural question for council, if I may. You had mentioned the Ginsburg case. Is there any formal objection by the Cadigans to the determination of substantiality?
So we came in for we're already here for a determination of whether it was substantial or insubstantial.
Right, and it was determined to be substantial.
Oh,
And
yes,
so my
we
question.
filed, we did file, we reserved our rights.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, because in the event that there is a reservation of rights, which absolutely there is that right to do under the rules, then I just wanted to respond to the Ginsburg case, because the substantiality issue, of course, is important. The Ginsburg case was one where insubstantiality was found to exist, where there was an increase in the setback from 0.4 feet to 4 feet. So it was actually addressing an issue that the board had in that particular case, and then they determined, okay, you were too close, and now you've increased the setback. So it was really the opposite of what we're talking about here, where you have a 16-foot setback where 15 is required, where they would go down to, 4, even 3 feet, 11 inches in one place. So, certainly, I do want to respond to that it is my opinion that this is a reasonable case to determine substantiality. And I want to mention also to the board that Attorney Mead is absolutely correct that the comprehensive permit did indicate, as all comprehensive permits do, certainly ones that I assist in writing, did indicate that any successor in interest would be included as within the applicant term for purposes of that permit, so that all successors in interest would be bound by the requirements of the permit. But there is a different definition under the 40B regulations of the term applicant. The term applicant only includes either a governmental entity or a nonprofit or a limited dividend organization. And so a question does exist as to whether individual property owners can come forward in the manner that they have under 40B to seek relief to modify the comprehensive permit, because they are not actually the applicant for purposes of 40B. And that's important, of course, because in the event that the board were to determine that there is a local concern here that the board is concerned about, you would look to see if you had an issue and you had, some specific requirement that you wanted to impose, and the applicant objected, you would look to see, well, would it render the project uneconomic? And in this context, it wouldn't be possible to make that evaluation. And I do want to mention that there is a potential workaround for that. And I just did discuss this with Attorney Mead before the hearing began, so that you could have an opportunity to think about it. And we both looked at the notice that was given for the public hearing, and certainly it was noticed under both 40A and 40B. And it is very specific about the setback dimensional variance, essentially, that is proposed here. And so one potential would be for the board to, if the applicant requests it, to treat the application as really one for variance relief. And there is case law that does provide that so long as the board feels comfortable that the public was warned of the relief that's being asked for, simply because it's recharacterized or reclassified under a different section of the bylaw, or, to say, well, we're calling it something a little bit different, there is the possibility to do that. Obviously, the standard of proof and the quantum of vote changes from, with a 40B situation, goes from a heavy burden of proof on the board and only a majority vote to approve, and a heavy burden of proof in the event that you were to deny or to impose conditions that render the project uneconomic, versus variance relief, where the burden of proof essentially rests with the applicant in the event they get the variance and it's challenged, or if it's denied, for them to prove that all of the criteria were satisfied. And of course, the supermajority vote would be required as well for a variance relief. So I want to mention that to the board so that you're just aware of that.
Thank you, yes. You've answered a number of the questions that were on my list here.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So in terms of terminology for an applicant, are there any issues with standing?
That's what I'm saying, essentially, a jurisdictional issue.
That they may not have standing to change that setback on the side, is that?
What I'm saying is that there's a specific definition of the term applicant under the 40B regulations. And what that definition provides is that you are an applicant and able to seek comprehensive permit relief, or to seek a modification to existing comprehensive permit relief, and even to hold a comprehensive permit, only if you meet certain criteria. And those criteria include either that you are a nonprofit, or that you are a limited dividend corporation, or a governmental entity.
And they are not any of those?
And I believe that they are not any of those, and that's why I'm saying that there is another avenue available. It doesn't mean that they are without recourse. The recourse that they would have would be under 40A, Section 10, to seek dimensional variance relief.
Now, if we interpret this application as a 40A variance application, would there be issues procedurally with notice to the abutters?
And that was why I had mentioned the Duteau case, and in the event,
How's that spelled?
Duteau, and what that case says is that in the event that a land use permitting board has an application before it, and the board determines that it needs to reclassify the nature of the relief, if the board looks at the warning that was given, in other words, the notice, the public hearing notice, and the notices that went out to all of the abutters, and determines that what was asked for, what was warned of in that application, was sufficient warning to let the abutters know and the public know what was being requested, then if the board is comfortable with that, then the board can proceed in that fashion. And of course, the applicant always has the ability to say, we're concerned about that, would rather re-advertise, because the risk is on them, essentially. But if the board is comfortable that the warning was sufficient, and I heard the reading of the public hearing notice was very specific, certainly with respect to, what is proposed here. So it may well be that the board would feel comfortable that a sufficient warning was given as to what was asked for.
So we could modify the relief to conform to the facts?
To conform to,
What
what you have the authority to give.
Okay.
Exactly.
As far as the Ginsburg case, I haven't read it. If you're familiar with it, because I think what I'm hearing from the applicant's counsel, if I can use that terminology, and your co-counsel that was here at the last meeting, that under these comprehensive plan setbacks are not, I guess they're not,
Well, the Ginsburg case was a
we would have the burden of proof as a board here to, I guess, challenge any change to the setback, is that what I'm hearing?
Anytime you have a 40B application, and the board takes action, the burden of proof is going to be on the board.
Right.
In the event that you impose any condition, you deny any relief. My point about the Ginsburg case was that it was a Superior Court case, so it didn't have precedential value, it's not an appellate level
Wasn't an
case.
appellate level case,
but-
SAC.
And what it said was, because Attorney Mead was perfectly accurate with what she said, it did say that an increase in the setback was an insubstantial modification. But my
Gotcha.
point is that that's the
It's the
opposite.
opposite.
It's the opposite of what you have here.
Because at the last meeting, I had raised the issue about, whether or not you could get a ladder up against the
Right.
building, you could fight a fire,
Right.
whether or not it posed a safety issue.
Right.
Your associate's not here, but I believe his statement was something to the effect that you could go right to the property line.
Right.
And to me, that defies reason. I mean, the abutter could put a fence up there, like you said, they could put a porch or something like that.
Right.
So effectively, you'd be right up against the building. So,
It'd be a really big porch on the abutter's
well,
property. Just-
and again, case law, I mean, I don't know of any case law that goes against, public safety. Safety's first, it's paramount of importance, so, I mean, I'm not the building inspector, I'm not the fire department, but I can see that there are members of, represented here. So I wanted to hear, whether or not it is a public safety issue that we should be concerned about. Do you believe is it your position that it doesn't pose any, safety issue, with a 3-foot 11-inch setback?
So the 311, it's actually, that's there's a 4-foot setback at the chimney and a 5-foot setback on the corner. So,
And again,
So my-
it's a chimney too, so
No,
if you had a chimney
yeah,
fire, I mean, how,
I'm,
is that a problem?
I'll be really clear, I'm not belittling the issue of public safety at
Yeah, yeah,
all.
right.
In fact, I have been attempting to get a hold of the prior acting, I think you appointed a new acting fire chief last night. Prior acting fire chief, I met last night with the gentleman from the fire department, that they were gonna look and get back to us, and they haven't done that, and I've attempted to reach him for a couple of weeks. So, and that's why I talked about the issue related to the fact that the front is 2 stories, but it's 1 room, and then it drops back to a single story the rest of the way. And that I believe that there is ample room all the way around the house to access all sides of the house. And I also make the statement that I don't think that the fire department is going to have a split rail fence stand in its way to fight fires. Right now, there's trees up along over here. There's a split rail fence in the front. And this isn't the only place in the town of Groveland where there are close quarters, to say the very least. This happens to be a large lot, the house is over here, I don't believe that owners are here, you could ask them, that they're going to build a deck all the way over to here. But it's not our property, it's not the Cadigans' property, so we're looking at this right here, and I don't believe it poses a public safety threat. If I could, though, if the member would mind, go back to council's comments related to applicant. I don't believe that we're entirely in agreement on that, but I would discuss the issue related to the variance. And the reason I don't believe it is the comprehensive permit goes to the land and is very clear that it applies to the land. And so what is being suggested is that, in fact, anybody who has a comprehensive permit on their property may not modify it whatsoever without getting the original applicant or becoming a qualified applicant. And so I don't know that I necessarily agree with her on that point, and I won't necessarily give it up. However, I think that she is correct related to having the board review this under the conditions of the variance. Keeping in mind, of course, then, that what you're saying is that all the stuff around the comprehensive permit issues don't necessarily apply. That if we're looking at the variance, then we look at shape, topography, soil condition, whether or not it derogates from the purpose and intent of the ordinance or the bylaw, as opposed to the other things that are applicable.
Drainage and, yeah.
So, you get to choose, we get to pick our poison, so to speak, right? We think this is a very modest addition. I don't know if any of you have been, I'm gonna quit repeating myself, has any of you been out here to see the property?
I live down the
So
street, but I
you
haven't
can
been up
see,
there.
if you've been out here, you can see that there's this, we have the topography on here. You can see that there is an elevation change on here to the back. And to put an addition on this side of the house would be it wouldn't work because of the topographical changes. And so also, it doesn't work functionally for the house either, if you've seen the layout of the house. But it certainly doesn't work from the topographical changes point of view related to the property. And so I think that there is a hardship related to the land for sure, causing us to put the addition on to the other side of the house. Again, there is the side setback issue, but I believe that, and I do see the recent,
No,
Fire. Current?
I'm the intern fire chief.
intern fire. There is still the 4 to 5 foot setback issue along the property.
I have some follow-up, other questions about the process here. So, we're proceeding under your revised letter that you submitted with the application, that the change is substantial under the 40B comprehensive permit. What I'm trying to understand is what the standard is for, and I guess it's a question for both of you, but I'd like to hear from the applicant first. What the standard for us to determine whether we can give this to you is. You know, is it the waiver standard under 40B? You know, were this part of the initial application? My understanding is that it would have required a waiver of the setback.
Right, so we're seeking a waiver of the side setback, that's
Okay,
correct.
so it's the same as if it were under an original application.
Under
the
the
same.
comprehensive permit under
Okay.
chapter 40B, that's right.
And my understanding is that it's gonna, if imposing this dimensional requirement would make the project uneconomic, then it's required that we give it.
We couldn't do it, right.
When you talk about the project, can you define the project for us at this point?
Well, I mean, under the comprehensive permit, it's all 3 lots, and that's why you're reviewing the drainage, right, for all 3 lots, because the comprehensive permit covers all 3 lots, although we're modifying only this. And I think that the reason you're also reviewing the drainage is because of the condition, 5A, in the comprehensive permit that says if you're gonna add impervious surface, that changes from the original permit. So our argument is that it would make it uneconomical to have this house as a 3-bedroom house, which was part of the whole comprehensive permit approval.
Sorry, it's uneconomical for it to remain a 3-bedroom house?
Right, because it doesn't actually work as a 3-bedroom house, because the room is not a bedroom.
Okay.
Which you're referring to as the current
sit-
sitting
Yeah,
room.
right.
Okay.
It's not as neat as if we were in here for a full comprehensive permit. There's
Right,
no
I mean, I think you
question
see
about it.
my question is
I
that
totally
the
understand
affordable,
it, and there's not, I'm not,
the affordable house is constructed, so the
Right,
it
but
doesn't
it-
go to the affordability
So
aspect
it's the
of it.
box, and it's
Yeah.
why council is saying the applicant needs to
Yeah.
be the applicant. It's the box that 40B puts us in,
Okay.
right? And so the box is, you have a standard to review it under.
Mhm.
The applicant is the applicant. We've asked us to review the impacts of whatever the comprehensive permit says,
Mhm.
and that's why we're in the box. Which is why council has suggested perhaps you wanna get out of the box and get into the 48 section 10 box.
Mhm. Council, is that analysis, the standard at which we would be reviewing it under 40B is the waiver standard, and that it is,
In
if
the-
it's uneconomic.
Yes, in the event that you're reviewing this under 40B and under the 40B regulations,
Yeah.
then you would look to see, is there a new waiver requested? Because of course, this setback was in conformance with the requirement when it was granted, and is in conformance still. So it would create a new nonconformity, and under 40B, in the event, let's just assume for a moment that you had the original applicant. The original applicant was here and was applying and had the assent of everyone, and somehow there was an agreement that really this was the applicant as the limited dividend corporation applying. The difficulty with that is that the question that you raised about how to determine whether there is an impact that would render the project uneconomic versus one of the homes. Obviously, all three of these homes have been in existence under the comprehensive permit for a number of years. It's been sold out, and I agree with Attorney Mead that and the rules are very specific, that once the comprehensive permit is substantially completed, then the comprehensive permit runs with the land. And so this particular project has been fully completed. And now, after completion has happened, the original house that was there before this even began now seeks to, to have this addition, and everyone can understand why. I mean, certainly, they have the absolute right to come forward and ask for this relief, no question about it. But in my opinion, there is a serious issue as to whether they can do it under 40B as opposed to under 40A, Section 10.
Okay, thank you. Is the lot size itself conforming?
No,
My understanding it's a non-conforming
No.
lot as well.
no,
9,512 square feet.
no, at the time, Madam Chair, that the 40B came forward and the house was on the lot, it was already non-conforming, I believe, only as to lot area.
Okay.
So they would all be not in conformance, but they would be allowed to have the configuration that they have right now under the comprehensive permit.
Right. I guess my question is there, if you're expanding the house size on a non-conforming lot, is that not also a relief? Under
Well-
40A, would that not also be a relief?
Well,
No.
if it were pre-existing non-conforming and we weren't creating any new non-conformities, then it could be done under special permit.
Mm-hmm.
But we're creating a new, this currently conforms, because the side setback's 15 feet.
Right,
So
yes.
we're now exacerbating
Yeah.
that, so it requires a
It's a new
variance instead of a
non-conformity.
special permit.
Yeah,
They want it under 40.
okay, I think I get it. Any board members have other questions they'd like to pose?
Are there any examples in case law that allow a new nonconformity under a 40B comprehensive permit? I mean, what precedent do we have to act, do we have jurisdiction to act under 40B on this if there's a new conformity created?
Well, the issue that I'm raising is whether the applicant has the appropriate status. Certainly, it's often the case that a modification will come forward while the applicant is still the limited dividend corporation and the units have not been sold out, where they realize, gee, we have a new modification that we need to seek, and there could be a new nonconformity sought at that time, but it's for the project as opposed to for an individual unit after it has been sold.
So,
And if
So-
I
so
could,
do
I
the-
should just clarify.
do these changes need to be foreseen during the project period of time? Is there a window of opportunity where it closes? You know, the project's been completed, the houses have existed, so if there's an economic, what's the legal term, you know? is
And it renders it
Uneconomic.
uneconomic.
It renders it uneconomical, right? Well, it's been there for a while. What evidence is there that it's uneconomical, and why wasn't that brought up at the original permitting process? I mean, is it,
Right, so there's no cases.
is it timely?
Well, the comprehensive permit runs with the land.
Yeah.
Right, so the comprehensive permit controls the property. And
But-
there is no prohibition against modifying a comprehensive permit.
Okay.
Most of the modifications, and council can correct me if I'm wrong, most of the modifications come on comprehensive permits, which are multifamily structures, bigger, larger. You know, you just don't see a lot of single-family homes anymore in comprehensive permit projects. So you do some, but they're usually under like condominium associations or homeowner associations, things like that. So this is unique for a number of reasons. One, it's small. Two, they're individual homes. And three, the desire is to modify the structure now. Just because there's a comprehensive permit on the property doesn't close out your opportunity to make changes to your property at all. The opportunity is to come before the board, and I think that's why council is saying that perhaps you should treat it as a variance. We're happy to listen to what the board has to say about that. So it's a different standard, different vote quantum. You know, if the board is having difficulty in the comprehensive permit box, we're happy to have a conversation about the variance. But there's no prohibition at all, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, to modify a comprehensive permit even after it's completed.
In terms of modification, though, does that include creating new nonconformities? That's my,
Well, you have,
that's
we
my,
have to go through the same
that's my,
process with the
that's
same
my issue.
standard.
That's what, yeah, so the waiver standard that would have applied at the
So I
initial.
wanna distinguish that, is a modification, I mean, there are modification possibilities that do not create new nonconformities.
So-
And there are those that do. This one appears to create a new nonconformity on the
Can I weigh in on that just briefly,
please. So can you
Madam
clarify
Chair?
that for
Sure.
me?
You know, Attorney Mead is correct, I think, that the most frequent modification that I see as counsel, where I'm called in, is in the multifamily context where you have a large project. But I have seen this in the single-family context, and part of all of this context is driven by the fact that we've seen a lot more rentals over the last 10 to 12 years, and before that, it was mostly single families. And back when there were a lot of single-family projects, I did very occasionally hear of situations where someone was coming forward long after the project was completely built and asking for a carport, and we unfortunately, you know, would have to weigh in and say, you need variance relief rather than go under the 40B standard. And quite frankly, I think what happens most often is that someone goes to the building department, and because it's not specified under the 40B comprehensive permit, because it's just not clear, as long as it appears to not create the new nonconformity that you're talking about, oftentimes I think the building permit, you know, it's for a garden shed or for, you know, for whatever it might be in the backyard, and it's set back enough and so forth, and often it will just be allowed. But that's why I am just suggesting that there is another avenue here that this project would seem, certainly in my opinion, to fit more squarely within. But again, as I mentioned and as Attorney Mead has echoed, it changes the quantum and it changes the burden of proof, and the criteria are, you know, are absolutely more stringent.
I have a follow-up question for Sam, if you don't mind. Can you talk about the way that the bedroom count has been defined earlier, and whether that jives with your understanding, if there's any other definition under the building code that would be different, and if you wouldn't mind talking into a microphone? You can sit here.
I guess I have similar concerns as the board as to what process you go through and and I'm kind of roundabout getting to my answer.
Okay.
As far as whether you go through the comprehensive permit or variance process. With the comprehensive permit, you know, I have a little bit of a hard time, and one of the issues I have a hard time with is the bedroom count, both under Title V definitions as well as Groveland's bylaw. Building doesn't define it quite as well. They define it as a room for sleeping, which
Okay.
well, you know, that could be your
So
your
your
living
living
room at
room,
that
yeah.
point if there's a good game on. So in looking at this, we definitely have, you know, 3 bedrooms upstairs that are very clear. You could certainly make the argument of the sitting room due to privacy. And then you have the office and I think it's a playroom, which under Title V definitions could also be considered bedroom. And this is a difficulty we have in, you know, most towns, and it's an argument we have. People have media rooms, playrooms, offices, whatever the case may be, and the fact that they're not used as bedrooms doesn't disqualify them necessarily as being a bedroom. And then you go to the Groveland bylaw, and you have, again, the 1 large room, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if you want to count it that way, but, you know, I guess if I was playing devil's advocate, I'd look at the sitting room as, you know, additional room, and possibly those media, or not media, the media room, you know, kitchen, living, dining, maybe you can have as 1 room. The media room is a bit of a stretch, so could I see it as more? Sure. So it's not as clear cut for me. I don't think this is an egregious project in any way, shape, or form as far as fitting the neighborhood, fitting the rest of the town and what your standards are. The other issue I end up having is the issue you brought up regarding the garage and what does that do in the future for tipping us over from, you know, now if they're entitled to the garage and we've given them X amount of square feet, have we exacerbated that, and is there a way to hold that back or hold, I guess, something, or have an agreement to eliminate that? Honestly, to go to Dan's point on the fire aspect, just to speak to that, I don't see it as much of an issue. The building code deals with reduced setbacks, 10 feet, 5 feet, 3, 2, right down to 0 feet for fire. It comes down to how you're gonna build that structure. You have access to 3 sides, 4 is certainly better, and I think the likelihood, like Lisa said, is, or I should refer to you as Attorney Mead, is that, you know, the neighbor's yard is very wide open and is most likely to maintain that. So going to the other process being variance for that reduced setback, I think it's a little tidier as far as trying to get my head around it. Again, you guys are the lucky ones that get to make the decision. I don't, so I'm very appreciative of that. The variance is pretty straightforward. You do have a topographical issue in the way that it sits. And then you also have, I don't know if it quite qualifies as hardship of the structure under 40A, but it is difficult when I look at the plans as a builder and as a homeowner from a cost standpoint to add the addition on the other side. It just doesn't lend itself to an easy add-on. Could you do it? Absolutely. I mean, you can do anything with enough money, but it is I guess a smarter way to develop and expand that house from an economical standpoint and a construction standpoint. So hopefully that long-winded answer got you.
Yeah, so it sounds like you wouldn't be opposed to buying the argument about how many rooms and bedrooms there are, but that there's questions that could be raised.
Yeah, and I think if this is reflected in the deed that it's a 3-bedroom and understood that it's to be used as a 3-bedroom moving forward, I think it's very reasonable to have an in-home office or a playroom for your kids. I mean, that's a very commonplace, and the fact that even though this is on, you know, town sewer, there's some language that ties it to Title V and bedroom definitions is a little maybe unfair. To hold it to that standard when it's really not, you know, what they're trying to accomplish here.
Can I ask Sam a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi.
So, my question is, when you do room counts, do you include bathrooms?
No.
Okay,
No bathrooms, no laundries, hallways, closets.
okay. I just want to double check that for the record. Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else for Sam? All right. I wondered if we might ask our interim fire chief to also address, since you've come to, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name. If you wouldn't mind just addressing the statements that have been made about the setbacks in the fire or life safety aspect. of it.
Sure, and I'll first address that. I got the phone call yesterday from my messages, and it was from last Friday. So,
Thank you for
couple
that.
weeks, I don't know who you've been trying to call, but it wasn't me. And I have no emails from you or anything, so I don't know who you've been trying to get in touch with. Yeah, that's fine. I guess I'm a little bit at a loss on this because I haven't been involved with it. So, I guess, can someone give me a real snapshot of, was it a single lot that was divided into multiple lots with 40B, and there's gonna be future houses built?
All the
What the-
houses are existing.
All the houses are existing,
Yeah.
but I guess there's a
But-
garage that can be put on a house somewhere?
Well, that's what we're trying to determine.
It's a
Well-
Okay.
freestanding garage.
Okay.
It was,
If you, yeah, if you want to take a look at the plans, these are the 3 lots.
So this was the, chief, this was the total comprehensive permit plan. This house was existing, this is the house we're talking about right now. These two houses exist. You'll see this freestanding garage here. And on the comprehensive permit plan, there was a freestanding garage that was permitted here but not built.
Okay. Okay, and so basically it's the existing,
So the proposal is to, on this house, is to put this addition on right here.
okay. And so that's on the opposite side of where the comprehensive plan actually was involved. It's on another neighbor's lot line?
Yeah, well, this is the lot line right
Yeah.
there. Right here's the lot line.
Yeah.
But the houses to the left of that are what was included in the comprehensive plan?
That's correct.
Okay.
And so the question is, it would reduce the setback to roughly 5 feet and 4 feet in various places.
Okay, are there any, bedroom windows overlooking that side lot?
I'll show you. Here's the side elevation, and here's the windows right here.
Okay, are those the only windows that, would go into that bedroom?
Nope, on the front of the house is right here,
Okay,
and then it drops down to a single level.
okay. And those windows you were just pointing to, those are included in the addition?
That's correct.
That's coming out here, then it's going down to a single, okay.
That's correct.
Okay. It appears that we're gonna have access to the front of the building for, rescue,
Okay.
if we get there. It was a comprehensive plan, so everything is built. I don't think putting this addition on is gonna affect our access from an apparatus standpoint. And I agree with the building inspector that the setbacks are gonna have to comply with the residential building code. So, based on the number of openings in the wall and the distances from the lot line, we'll have to have either non-combustible or some type of fire-rated construction if the building code requires it, so. I don't see from this standpoint that it would affect our ability
Okay.
to get into the building or to fight a fire in the building.
Great, thank you very much for your comments.
thank you.
If the board doesn't have any questions at this moment,
Well, I'd like to hear from the neighbor.
that's what I'm
Okay.
going to, if you didn't have any questions, I'd like to invite anyone in the public who would like to comment. If you could come up and
I'll pass this
if you
down.
could just have a
You don't
seat,
to go to the front hot seat then.
state your name and address for the record, and
My
provide
husband
your
and I are both
comments.
here. Patricia and Norman Fontaine, who live at 21 Philbrook Street. The end of the street, it's our property line that abuts the proposal. I think the largest concern that I have is, and I have pictures on my phone if you wanted to see them, is the view that we'll be left with should this move forward. It's, right now, it's a wooded area. I will say the majority of the trees are ours. I do understand that we may have branches and limbs that may be in their airspace that would obviously have to be cut back to, you know, accommodate such an addition. But I want to assure I would want it to be sure that during the construction, any of the trees that are ours are not taken down or, you know, taken away, so that now, instead of from our home, we have a view of just woods, and as opposed to looking to the side of their house. I don't want that to occur, because this is quite a change, you know, footage-wise to what's allowed. Anything you wanted to add?
I think it's just, it's part of the charm of the neighborhood, part of the lot that we bought was that we have a tree shield. And we faced other variances before from another neighbor, and it was understood that they would protect and preserve that wooded area, so we don't lose it. If, you know, to come back and say, I'll plant a tree, I won't see that tree grow to the same height as the tree that currently in my lifetime. So it's an important part of the charm of this lot. Yeah, I think it's something we want to preserve. So we'd like to know that the trees will be protected during the construction phase.
If I may ask, how far back your house is from the shared lot line?
Oh, the house is quite a distance, it's not the house itself, but I don't
And
know,
these are
what would you
trees.
say, 30 feet? No, 40 feet? I don't know.
It's a long distance. It would be a very substantial deck.
Well, and just, yeah,
Not that we're going to build a
Yeah.
deck or anything there, it's more for aesthetics.
Well,
And
yeah.
also when we're looking outside.
right.
And we sit on our own deck and we look over that way, you know, but now
Okay.
we don't wanna be looking at the side of the house. So, and the tree cover that's there is ours, but I just don't know, like, you know, as part, I'm not an engineer or a builder, as part of the construction, what has to happen in order to build this addition?
Yeah.
I don't want to see, you know, all the trees on our property wiped out to get that addition up.
Okay. Would you like to address
Yeah,
that?
so certainly Stephen and Jennifer understand that they appreciate the trees as much as you do. I think you guys have all had great relationships.
Yeah, yep.
So what I did was, just because I went out there last night, I was like, wow, there's a lot of trees here, right? So, because I was looking at the access and all of that. So if you can see, here's the little red dot. So this house right here is 15 Philbrook.
With the red roof?
Jennifer and Stevens, right? And the neighbor's house is back here, right here, at the end of the drive.
Yep.
And then all of these trees almost, in fact, pretty much all of them, and you can figure that out by the setback, are on their property. In fact, you recently had it staked out.
Yeah, we just had a whole property survey.
Yeah, so,
Just to be sure
so,
there's
no,
no
but it's really
issue.
clear, no, I think that was a really
Yeah.
good idea. So it's really clear when you go out there, you can see where the trees are and there aren't. So it's clear, I mean, I was down there, there's like a little rabbit cage along the side of the house and everything. There's a clear area along the side of the house. And so obviously they have to stay on their own property if they're doing construction, on their house. They can't be doing construction on the neighbor's property and taking down any of the neighbor's trees, nor do they wanna do that. So you put all the kind of conditions in you want to cover that kind of instance. Do you wanna see this?
Do you know how close the trunks of the trees actually are to the property line?
I think there's some bushes that are probably fairly close, but I would say the tree trunks are probably 3 or 4 feet. But there are
Yeah.
long branches that do extend
Yeah.
over into the air space.
Well, because that's if they're excavating the basement, then they're gonna be cutting into the roots,
That's what I'm concerned.
if they're that close.
And it is a basement, right?
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
plans had a full basement.
Yeah, that was fine.
Aside from the trees, do you have other objections, concerns, or are in favor of the construction of the structure itself? Or is the trees the main concern?
That's really our own, concern. You know, we have a good relationship a good point, you know.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
The full basement.
Okay.
It's fine.
I
I-
have a quick question, actually.
About 6 feet
So,
tall.
of the tree line, right, that you're talking about,
Specifically.
are any of the trees on the property of 15 Philbrook, or are they all on yours?
They're on ours.
All of it?
Yeah.
Okay, because when I looked at it, it's hard to see, obviously,
Yeah.
so if they're all on your side, there's nothing, like, they wouldn't be
Like I say,
taking
maybe
down
little
part of
bushes
theirs?
Or something like that, but.
Okay, thank you.
Actual trees are ours.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out. It's hard to see.
Okay. Anything else? Any other comments from the
I
public?
have
You're
a
the
I have
only-
a question for you.
Hank, go ahead.
Other than the trees, I mean, do you have a problem with the setback itself of 3 feet 11 inches? And then there's another dimension here of about
I mean, I'm not
4
thrilled
feet
about it,
11.
but, I mean, I'm not thrilled about it, I mean, I would like everyone to, just go by what the setback rules are, but, you know, I do understand it's their land, and, you know, I like to think that everybody can do what they would like to do, you know, on their land, but I just don't want it to be to a detriment to our property, that's all.
Okay.
Okay. So, I'll just, more for the board, really. There are a few things that I think are sticking out in my mind of things that I would like to have answered or resolved or whatever before I kind of decide even the 40B versus 40A for whatever. So, one is the optional garage on Lot 3. And looking in the special permit, it does say,
In the comprehensive.
I'm
permit.
sorry, thank you, the comprehensive permit, thank you. That it would be, the answer to that question may most likely be in the deed for Lot 3, whether it was allowed later or not. That's my guess. Looking at all the different notations towards it, so it may actually be part of that deed, whether that's allowed later.
Can you tell me what paragraph you're looking at?
So, well, there was a couple of different things I was looking at, so I have a million of them. Let's see.
You don't need to find it, I just thought you had your
Well,
finger on it.
I was looking at a bunch of different things all at once,
I'll
so
find it, you don't need to go through it, I just thought you had your finger on it. That's fine.
I did.
That's all right. That's
And then I
okay.
went to go look up something else, and
That's
then,
I'll look at it.
I had it noted, and part of my problem is I have two separate sets. One is missing
know,
page
yeah.
5, or missing one page, this
You gotta
one's
go back
missing
to the
another
old one.
page, so I'm like, all over the place. Okay, so the section I'm referring to is, section 44 of the original comprehensive permit. Well, that's one issue that I still have, and it says that it should be referenced in the purchase and sale agreements for Lot 2 and Lot 3, and in the restrictive covenant referred to in paragraph 20. So I'm wondering if the optional garage is maybe mentioned on that. That's what I'm looking, I'm
Yeah.
thinking that might be a place to figure out if it is or not. My other issue is, I would like a little more clarification on the drainage issue. Only because I know that, just from being in town, you know, that it was definitely an issue when this project was going on. So I realize that you got a letter from the original engineer,
Right.
and that's, and I'm not saying I don't believe that, but what I cannot see for myself is on the as-built plan,
Yep,
what the impervious surface ended up. I don't know, is that the as-built?
this is the as-built, yes, you have the as-built.
Right, but that,
You mean this one?
but we can't read
The
it.
approved
No,
plan.
that's
The approved plan.
plan. That plan you can't read is the approved plan.
And then this is what was
And the
actually
as-built
constructed.
Right,
is
so
the actual construction.
what I'm trying to say is that I can't do the math that he did because I can't read it. That's my point. I
Right, you
wanna be able to
what's
see them both.
missing. Yeah, right, you wanna
Yeah.
see what's missing, which is what we talked about
Yeah.
before.
Right.
So, for example, obviously, the approved plan has the garage, and the as-built does not, so that's a big chunk.
Right, but even if this said, or it probably does, I just can't see it. Even if it does say, you know, 3,789 square feet, I could say, okay, there's 3789, here's 26 or 29,
Kathy
and then I
likes to
could do the
math.
math
So he may, yeah, so we'll have to, so he may
on the
have.
engineer's report.
So I suspect, that, it would be, whatever the approved stormwater, study was, would have it in it, and so he did all of that, so I'll get.
Yeah, I just
understand.
wanna see it in black and white, that's
Yep.
all, before so I could put it to bed.
Hang on. I'm just looking through a pile of things that Julie had found in the files,
Oh,
and this might be it. Do you wanna take a look to see?
It's still not, I mean, you go ahead.
I just wanna take a look at it. Is this the same one?
So it's actually the signed one, whereas this isn't signed.
So if you
April
look at the,
24. Doesn't look like the right one.
Okay.
I don't know that he has this, but if you look at the approved plan, excuse me, the as-built, he has 4 tables. Summary of impervious area on the approved plans by lot, lot 2, lot 3, and, because that was existing, right? So then you wanna know what the difference was and where it came from.
Right, because he states in
Right.
his letter, I just want to be able to see where he got his information,
Yeah,
so,
I totally understand.
yeah, that's all.
Right. Good.
It may be here, I just haven't been able to look at it yet.
Were there other questions you had?
Well, that's a big deal for me. Yeah.
Just
Unless-
wanted to get them all out there.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think those were. Yeah. My other question was answered by the fire chief.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dan, Jason, do you guys have more questions about facts that you'd like to understand before moving forward? It's okay if you don't.
I'm good for now.
So I think we should talk about how to move forward from here.
Thank you.
It sounds like we have some further clarification questions to be able to move, factual questions to move through the 40B
Well, I guess, so that's my question.
process.
So, if this were just a variance, we wouldn't be answering those questions.
Right.
We would be answering 48, section 10, shape, topography, soil condition, derogation, substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. Madam Chair?
Yes, thank you.
Just a point on that, certainly if this is done as a variance, you need absolutely to look at the criteria under 48, section 10, but the zoning for this project is set forth in the comprehensive permit, so you would also look at that. You would look at what the requirements are under the permit, and what so I think you would look at the drainage issue as well.
Well, it would go to, right, I guess your point would be because you're considering the zoning, the comprehensive permit.
Right.
So whether it would derogate from the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance would be the comprehensive permit,
Exactly.
hence the answering of the question relative to drainage.
Right.
I see.
So I think it's both.
So it's really both.
It's really both.
And that is a question I would ask, whether it had previous drainage issues or not. So if you have a house and you add a big addition, I wanna know where the water's going anyway, right? I mean,
No,
obviously,
right,
that's a different
right.
department, but it's usually a question I think about,
Yeah, yeah, no.
in general.
Yeah.
But because this had drainage issues, I really wanna know, that's why.
Let's put it back.
So, but I can't seem to find what. Yeah, you
May I
guys.
ask the chair a question?
Yes, please.
And I haven't practiced in front of so I don't know what your policy is. But we're gonna go back and get you all of this information. And assuming that, and I'm not asking you to put your votes on the table, but assuming that, Phil's numbers stay correct and you can't build this garage, and even if you built the garage, you would still have the same numbers and the water stays on this lot. Is the board inclined to go in the variance route? And, given what you've heard tonight, if the answer is appropriate for all of those questions, would you be inclined to, allow the addition?
Well, I think it's fair for us to have a little discussion about how we're feeling, without,
So I'm gonna go ask the applicant to spend a lot more money.
Yeah, I
And
understand.
I'm just kind of trying to get a feel for things here.
Yeah. I mean, my concerns are, I mean, I'm still having a little trouble wrapping my head around putting this in the 40B box. Thinking of it from a variance perspective, it's a substantial variance. And, you know, hearing the concerns of the neighbors, I think we might have to know a little bit more about what kind of construction requirements are needed in order to get the addition as proposed in with a minimum of damage to trees, as well as, like, what kind of protections there can be. You know, if, in my opinion, if this were to be permitted, there would be substantial conditions surrounding impacts on the neighbor. You know, fire access aside, you know, we have setbacks for a reason, space and light between houses. And, you know, I get Groveland is a little bit quirky, and you know, my house sits 2 feet from my lot line. You know, somebody divided it that way. I don't know who did, but, so you know, we understand that, but it's still a substantial variance, in my opinion. Yes.
And Madam Chair, obviously, if you go the variance route, then the ability to impose conditions is obviously, you know,
Yeah.
much simpler.
Right.
And working with the neighbors, you know, with
Yeah.
respect to their concerns about the tree roots and the cutting and so forth,
Yeah.
it'd be much easier to do.
As far as drainage goes, I think the thing that we would like to, I think that I would like to know is to make sure that
Yeah, I get
the
it.
water's staying on their property.
I get the
You know,
drainage question.
that's kind of it for me.
No question about it, I get the drainage question.
The question in regards to if we went the variance route, would that be applying the standard setback requirements that we have everywhere else? Or are we
15.
now
Yeah.
in anything special that's also defined in here? I didn't really see anything specifically.
I don't believe that there were any
As
waivers.
approved, right, so it was 15 feet was the requirement,
Yeah.
still 15 feet.
Correct.
And council can correct me, but that's
Yeah.
it's 15 feet.
So it's not non-conforming, if that was
Yeah.
your question.
Yeah, so it's as if it's a whole new
Yeah.
variance kind of
Yeah.
thing. So it would be applying our zoning bylaw.
A regular.
But also the comprehensive permit as part of the zoning applicable to this lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and then my opinion is we wouldn't approve normal variance under those setbacks. I don't think that I haven't seen, I mean, I haven't been there that long, but I haven't seen a case where we've broken into the setbacks under anything that close. or
Yeah,
anywhere
I
near
mean,
that.
we haven't heard the argument as to what the hardship is, so, you know, that's not having judged on that, but, you know, it is a substantial one.
An 8-foot setback you granted just a year or so ago, right behind here.
Is that, yeah,
Right
For-
behind
to your
here.
neighbor's
For a
garage,
we
yeah,
give an
remember?
8-foot setback.
That's right.
Yeah. Dan, do you have any thoughts that you want to share?
Well, I mean, I see it as a variance, and coupled with the zoning of the comprehensive permit, that's how I see it, in terms of analyzing the facts. I think they're coupled, and what you're requesting. You know, I don't wanna prejudge anything in terms of, you know, but the neighbors have a concern in any variant situation where there are direct abutters that have a concern, then I will take that into consideration. They're directly impacted by it.
Yeah.
So if they think that it's more detrimental, then, you know, I weigh that on the heavy side
Yeah.
versus if they were, you know, down the street and over the river and through the woods type of thing. So how can you put a foundation in that might need, again, I'm not a construction guy, 6 or 8 feet, dig a hole, put a footing, without killing those trees. So I can't sit here, you know, I'm a CPA attorney, I'm a tax guy. I can't sit here and give you assurances that they're not gonna kill these trees digging an 8-foot hole in the ground. I can't give anyone that guarantee.
Yeah, and, you know,
So-
I'm not a CPA, but I am a lawyer, and so I can't tell you that either, but I know
Right.
there's a lot of methods to a lot of things, and so I wanna know
So
what the concerns are to see if we can address them.
Right, I would seek further assurances.
Right.
And if you're amenable to that, then I think, you know, it wouldn't be, you know, a wild goose chase for you to go away and spend more money and come back on that. I think it would be reasonable, in my opinion, to address that and to listen to it. But if that would fail, you couldn't come up with any solution to that, then, you know, 3 feet 11 is a little tight, you know, it's a little tight. We agreed to 8. What if 8 would work and 4 wouldn't? You know, does that kill your project?
Yeah, like, what is 7, does 7 work?
Is that fatal? I don't know. I mean, is it, you know, I don't wanna play a game of limbo with you here.
No,
You know,
But no,
cause
that's not
there's,
what it-
there's money at stake, and I respect everybody here. I mean, this is costly process.
Right.
So, that's all.
Council?
Madam Chair, through you, I do see this kind of issue come up in the 40B context pretty frequently, and I'm not an arborist either. And I don't even play one on TV. But I know that there is the ability to use pneumatic saws, certainly, that may be, you know, more accurate, so forth, and less likely to do damage. And one thing that might be appropriate for the private parties to do between now and perhaps the next time that you meet, in the event that you're not going to close tonight, is for them to go back and measure the trees and their distance to the property line, because
That's what I
then,
was thinking.
you'll know
Yeah.
whether they're really in range. My understanding is that if the canopy comes over, then that is an indication that there are roots below, but, you know, perhaps quantifying it for everyone, if the neighbors are willing to allow the applicant to go on their property and to do some measuring, figure out where the lot line is, figure out where the tree base is, and
Yeah.
figure out, you know, what the problem is and whether there's some way to work around
Well,
it.
we know where the lot line is, because they
They just said
graciously had it staked,
Oh.
so it's,
Great,
we,
that's helpful.
yeah, it's really helpful, truly.
So then to go out and measure where the trees are in relation,
Right.
where the trunks are in relation to that, and come back and tell the board how many trees there are and how close they are, that might be very useful for the board potentially.
Thank you. Kathy, do you have anything you want to say, or?
No, I think I've said enough.
As far as like the additional work from Sergey and Christensen, I don't know that we need too, I think we're just looking for clarification,
I
not,
thought the defined areas, I
Okay.
think that, we'll bring those back to you, and then you can decide what you want to do.
Yeah, I don't need him
Okay.
to reevaluate everything.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
wanna know where he got his numbers,
Yep.
and just show me, here
Yep.
versus here, where's the difference?
You got it,
That's it,
you got it.
and that will put it to rest.
So it sounds to me like the board is wanting to continue the public hearing pending receipt of additional information. I think we would probably like to see the variance argument as well.
So is the board, I'm comfortable with the advertisement. The advertisement advertises both under 40B and 40A, and it specifically says what the setback
Yeah.
is. So I'm comfortable with the ad, if the board is comfortable with the ad. I wouldn't want to commit to the variance yet till I have an opportunity to talk to Jennifer and Stephen, but I certainly hear which direction you're going.
Understood, yeah, no, I don't want you to concede any arguments at this point, but I think, you know, in order for the board to make all, hopefully we can make a decision next time, you know, to have all the arguments before
And I'll
us.
submit something,
Yeah.
something to the board in advance.
Perfect, okay. I guess I'm comfortable with the way the hearing was noticed to include the variance standard, but if anybody objects, I'm
Did we have-
certainly willing to
My
entertain.
only question was, when did we send out the notices? Because I know this was a short period and a very,
No, we got them out 14 days, and, yeah,
Yeah, they met
we met the,
statutory requirement.
yeah. So it conformed to the
State the setback.
40A notice requirements.
Bushwhack, can't bushwhack anybody. What's the legal notice? I'm sorry.
It's on the agenda, if you,
Yeah, in fact, yeah, I was looking for mine too.
It states 311 and
it
411.
does specifically.
So there's no,
3 feet, 11 inches,
Okay.
and 16 to 4.
so there's no ambiguity there.
No, you don't.
It says 4 feet 11 inches here, so,
No, 3 feet,
But-
if you keep going down, you read,
Four
oh,
feet.
oh,
There's
in
two
one
different-
section,
From
that's right.
16
Because the
feet to
ru-
4 feet,
the way the house is
Chimney
on the
cover.
lot, it goes sideways.
Thank you.
311 from,
I forgot about the chimney pot.
thank you.
So, Dan, are you comfortable with that?
I'm clear, I think it's clear on its face that it gave proper notice as to the facts of what they want to do procedurally.
Okay. Kathy, are you good with that?
You know, we're wrangling with the procedure on it, but the facts for a layperson, they would read that and they want to go from 16 feet to those dimensions. So I think there's no, there aren't any curveballs in the notice. Pretty straightforward. So I'm
do-
satisfied with the notice, but I think we should,
Do we need to vote on that, or is it?
I
something-
think the council was just looking for a sense of the
Okay.
board. Certainly, it sounds like the board is comfortable. I've looked at the ad. I think I might have written it.
I think you did.
I think you did.
I might have edited it a little bit to
So,
cut it down on the words.
I could see where the board would be comfortable with it, with respect to the variance standard, but as I mentioned, it's really for the applicant to determine
Okay.
whether they want to further advertising, because it's at their risk.
Right.
And provided that the board is comfortable that the warning is sufficient, then the board would allow the applicant to go forward
Okay.
if the applicant wished to.
Okay. So, I guess we're looking for the information about the variance, but I think we're okay if you want to wait to,
Yes,
yeah, I mean, to commit to,
What I request
Going.
is that when I submit in advance of your next meeting, it will be clear which
Okay.
direction, so you know coming into here,
okay,
into the next meeting, which direction we would be comfortable going,
that sounds good.
if that would be, and with all the other information you asked.
Okay. I did just want to make one note, just for your information. I think we've talked a little bit about, like, porches and chimneys and the setbacks for those, but with our new zoning bylaws, those sort of extensions are no longer permitted into setbacks.
Even the uncovered ones?
Even uncovered porches, yeah, we took that out of section 8.4.
The one you just passed?
That we just passed in this town meeting in
Right.
2018, we made some changes to section 8, so just for your information, you might want to take a look at it. Okay, do you have any other questions for us as to what?
No, we requested continuance to,
Okay,
when do you?
that's a good question.
That's-
Question.
that's on the agenda.
Yeah, we were gonna talk about our summer schedule, because it is kind of an issue. My agenda has gone.
Here, have mine.
That's okay. So we normally meet the first Wednesday of every month. The first Wednesday of July is July 4th.
I will not be around.
I'm also going to be out of the country from June 15th through July 4th.
July 11th?
So, let's see, July 11th is the second Wednesday. Can we do second, can we do, even if you're not here? There's a meeting in here on Wednesday.
You don't like to meet on Wednesdays?
I don't much care, but it's more of a schedule, of, like, what the schedule for this room is.
I have a quick question for our council.
Yes.
Is there a specific time frame which we have to have the next?
We can give you, we'll agree to the
I-
next meeting as soon as we can reschedule.
Sure, I was going to weigh in on that. Obviously, with the 40B, you have 180 days
Yeah.
from opening the public hearing from tonight, but with the variance, it's shorter, and you're still, I don't know what the date of the application was. We'd have to,
It was not even 30 days ago. Or
Okay.
tonight was 30 days, it wasn't even 30 days ago.
so we're opened within the 65, and then you have 100, so, but if you go out to July, it starts to get,
We'll agree to the continuance. So if we pick a date tonight, we'll agree to the continuance to that night, so we
Okay.
know.
Okay.
and it would be
Okay, I
within the,
just
within the
wanted to make sure.
timeframe,
Yeah.
if it's early July.
I mean, I know that as long as everybody's available, July 18th, we have this room, because we also do have the third Wednesdays. That is pushing you out a while. Julie, do you know what the schedule for this room is on other days of the
Meeting
week?
next week?
No, we were gonna skip next week, originally.
I guess,
Second week in June.
We could do that.
Second week of June,
oh,
2 weeks.
Second week of June,
Do the 13th.
the 13th?
fill the turnaround that fast.
Late at night.
And then you'll be gone the next, so,
Yeah.
I cannot do
Here.
the 13th of June.
yeah.
9
And then you'll be
o'clock.
gone.
And conservation meets in this room that night.
They meet on, oh, that's the second, yeah,
Right.
that's right.
Very popular.
What about Thursday nights? Do you know anything about Thursdays? If there's anything going on Thursdays? Sam, do you know?
It's the one problem.
June 21st, Thursday night, June 21st?
I'm not
Oh,
gonna be
you're
here,
leaving, right,
unfortunately.
I mean, if you're not gonna be back, if you're gonna be gone the end of June, then we have to be July,
We go back to
This
July
point.
18th.
because we can't bring anybody else in
Right.
without,
It's true, we could do the second room.
Exactly. Sometime in June would be preferable.
Well, but,
Do you think you would be able to get the turnaround for you said you couldn't do the 13th?
I can't do the 13th. In fact, I've got nobody in my firm to do the 13th.
okay, and that pushes us to July then.
What a Friday night. We-
How about
I assume you wouldn't be,
well, she's leaving on the 15th.
June 11th.
No, she can't.
You wanna get this over with, right?
I can't be there.
will you
on
be able
the
to do
11th,
that, the
but if you
11th?
don't, I could send someone else.
I can do the 11th, and I'll just pound on Bill, and we'll find an arborist.
The 11th of what?
Yeah.
June.
11th.
And I'm not
Monday.
available Madam Chair, on June the 11th, but I could send someone else if you wished.
Okay, we can
I
discuss
need
it.
to check the schedule. I don't know what days I'm gonna be available that early.
Somebody is
Um,
not.
Short. I'd have to look, check with the,
What about,
Oh my God.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
just a
That's a small
suggestion, and everyone might laugh, but Julie suggested maybe next Wednesday, which is our normal
The
regular day,
6th.
the 6th. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that gives you enough
I don't know
time
if
to
that-
do.
We can't, I'm booked and we can't.
Okay.
There's no way.
All right, just throwing it out there, because we already have the room, we already have everything.
I can't do it that fast.
Um,
And there's the 18th, but you're away.
July 18th.
You're gone from when to when?
July 15th, I'm sorry, June 15th to July 4th. Sorry, it's my big vacation.
Sounds like fun already.
I know, right?
July's vacation time.
So it'll be June 11th that week, but we don't know about that.
But you don't know if you can do
I'd
it.
have to
We're looking at
verify. I mean,
July.
I could-
probably, but I can't guarantee it.
But we have to continue to a date certain to keep
Yes,
the
you have to
public
continue
hearing
to a
on.
date certain.
If for some reason we could not make that date, would we could come, open the hearing, continue to a later date?
yes.
And I
Right.
assume you would agree to that. So, all right, let's do the 11th, Monday, June 11th. If for some reason there's a glitch in that,
Yeah, I should
we'll-
know.
I mean,
And I can let you know whether I can send someone
yeah.
else.
I mean, it may be like, me coming and opening the hearing. I guess to vote to continue the hearing, would just a simple quorum be required?
I would
A simple
prefer that
majority.
you have a quorum, yes.
So just 3 of us.
That'd be fine.
So you can come on the 11th?
Yes.
Dan, can you come on the 11th?
So now I think I can. 7:30 or
At
later.
7:30.
Not 6.
Well, she's saying
7:30?
just if
At
we have to just
7:30.
continue it.
Quarter
it'd be great.
8.
But
We'll wait for you if you can't get here to quarter of
I
eight.
left my kid's baseball game to come here, so, you know. He was on second base.
if we
I
can
got in the
only-
pickup truck and he
If they
tried to
come on
steal
the
third, they
11th.
threw him out of third, so I gotta talk to him when I
We
get home.
can't vote on there,
Why not?
because we only have 4 people.
Well, if
Well,
you
I
can't
get it
come,
right.
we'll
I'm
just have
pretty
to
sure I can
continue
come,
it.
I just can't
Yeah.
promise it.
All right, but if you come,
How do you get
then
thrown
we'll-
out in
okay,
third?
I get you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that work for you? I'm sorry to be complicated.
No, that's okay, June
Playing
11th.
June 11th, and,
The college try.
and we'll let you know as soon as we can if it's not gonna go.
And if that's the case, we'll get something to you by mid-next week,
Okay,
not Monday, but like mid-next week.
okay.
Okay, so what time? At
At
7:30?
so I will make a motion to continue the public hearing until June 11th at 7:30 in this room, or somewhere else in Town Hall if we're not able to use this room.
That's fine.
I second.
here on Monday night, that Monday night?
The what?
Is the Board of Selectmen here on Monday night? I mean.
Check the calendar.
That's what I'm saying.
If this isn't open, then
If this room is not open, we'll meet in the other. Meet in the hallway of Town
The
Hall.
old Switching to the old Sam's selectmen office.
meeting.
Anybody second that?
I seconded.
Kathy seconds, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience with our schedules.
Thank you for your patience with us.
No, there's nothing scheduled for June 11th right now on the calendar, so,
They meet the first and third.
yeah, the 4th and the 18th, so.
Thank you. Can we take a 5-minute recess?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
I second.
We're taking a recess, Charlie.
You mentioned there were some changes in the setback rules from the last town meeting.
Yeah, town meeting in April, there was a couple of changes to the bylaw that were adopted.
The impact, not these trees we're talking about, but someone want to plant pine tree on here.
No, trees are
Oh, they
structures. You can plant trees wherever you want. Well,
Porches,
Well,
egress.
on
What
your
it
own
changed was,
property.
there was an exception in the bylaw for uncovered porches, chimneys, roof extensions, so
People
those
just
didn't count for
put
the
decks all around the
setback.
house.
We've taken that out, so now all of your porches and roof lines have to comply with setbacks. It makes my deck non-conforming, I'm bummed about it. Thank you. Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Assume that you don't need me to stay, right?
Put that on recess? Charlie, we're still live.
Assume you're all set.
Okay, so we're back at 9:29. This is continuation of the May 30th zoning board of appeals meeting. Next on our agenda, we have a couple invoices to pay. It's a bill from the Eagle Tribune in the amount of $454.50 for legal advertising, and a bill payable to Julie House for administrative work supporting the ZBA for $284.63. Anybody would like to look at the bills? Oh, good, okay. So I'll move to approve the invoice to the Eagle Tribune in the amount of $454.50.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Looks unanimous. And I'll move to approve the bill payable to Julie House in the amount of $284.63. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Were there minutes that went around? I didn't see minutes. Oh, are they in this pile?
I have so much paperwork, this one's like. Oh, I got lost in
I don't-
there somewhere.
I think this is all. Over.
My paperwork is all screwed up. This was part of that, I was looking at that, but I couldn't find what it. I don't see any minutes to it.
Sorry.
Better get rid of that before you fly.
Well, while we're looking, let's talk about the rest of the summer schedule. So, if we meet June 11th, I guess we need Julie for this too, so I'm distracted. I'm pretty sure they didn't come my way.
What's in that all?
This is all stuff. Back. No?
Yeah, we just went through them too,
Yeah.
looking,
There's-
did it get mixed up in the stuff that went in the zoning file?
If you want to look again.
That was what was in the file prior?
It's okay, I mean, we can vote on them next time.
So, that's what this is.
I guess we'll table the minutes till June 11th.
Guess so.
So summer schedule, Julie, you and I had both talked to a couple people who had applications that they were thinking of submitting. There's one for a sign and for the gas station. I didn't know if you had received anything or anything further about what timing.
They have the 10th, they have until the 10th of the month though, too, so I'm thinking hopefully
Today
they'll
is the
have next
30th.
week.
Yeah, so,
We bring them
okay.
in. So, I mean.
It's too late to notice anything for the 11th, so. So, do you guys want to pencil in July 18th then as a meeting date? For anybody who comes in before June 10th?
Sure.
Fine with me. I
You okay?
don't have any plans to.
I got something on the 8th, I got a call. Are you available on July 18th?
Probably not, but I have no problem with the date.
Does that mean you'd come to a meeting? You know,
was
I'm
such
not
a
asking
lawyer
about your
answer.
existential feelings about the day, but whether
Then-
you're available to come.
The August 1st is 2 weeks after that.
Yeah.
Why don't we just do it in August?
We can,
Take
it's,
July off.
it's just a matter of customer service to our fellow townsfolk who may want their permits, but I don't really care.
You
so.
think there's one pending for a sign or something, you said?
Well, I've talked to 2 people over the last couple of weeks who had questions about applications and were expecting to file soon. So
Ah,
I
see.
just,
Well, what if we pencil in the 18th, and then if we don't need it, we can skip it
oh, yeah, that
if they don't.
totally works for me. I mean, I'm all about skipping meetings if we don't have to come, but,
Me too. But if, so let's say they come in June 10th, let's say,
yeah,
and if we skip July, that means they wouldn't be heard until August 1st.
yeah. It's
What-
like, it's like, I mean, it's within the statutory timeframes, but it's kind of a long time
Yeah, that's what I'm,
to tell people that we're not gonna hear their questions. Especially, I mean, one of them, I don't know if they've bought the building yet or if they are thinking about buying the building. But if everybody's available on the July 18th, let's do that. So far, I've heard that it's okay.
I have no objection.
Okay. So, Julie, does that work for you, July 18th? Okay, so let's plan on that, and then we can,
if we do July 18th, we might be able to skip August.
we might, do you guys want to push the August meeting? I mean, I think we still need to schedule it just in case we have applications. But we can either have it on the 1st and go back to our regular schedule, or push it to the 15th.
What's the, what is it, 45 days after after it's state stamped, that it has to be heard, the application?
I think it's 65 days.
Oh, 65 days, okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's a long time, but like I said, somebody's considering buying a building, waiting 65 days to just get heard is a long time.
Yeah. We just play it by ear, I guess, I mean.
Yeah, let's keep the August 1st meeting. If we don't need it, then we don't need it. But that way, if we skip the July meeting, if it turns out nobody comes in, then we don't have to email all around trying to figure out when our next meeting is.
Right.
So, all right, so we're removing the July meeting to the 18th and keeping August 1st.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything anybody else wants to talk about? Oh, I wanted to ask Dan a question. Has anybody from Selectmen asked, I think your appointment's up at the end of June? And I just,
It's up.
yeah, I just want to make sure you're coming back.
I didn't want to answer that question on
If you don't want to answer on camera, that's fine.
No,
I just
no.
wanted to make sure you were aware of it so that you
I
could
know all about
carefully
everything.
consider it.
I'm very aware of my surroundings.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Anybody want to go home?
Yes, please.
All right, so, anybody want to make a motion about that?
Let's act.
Motion to close, 20 of 10.
Second. Jinx. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. All set, Charlie.